Coming up tonight, the new alcohol driving limits. How much are you allowed now? Tauranga Te Reo, it's a go. White Ribbon Day and supplement use on the rise. Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Tuesday, the 25th of November. I'm Hilary Entwistle. From the 1st of December, the breath alcohol limit will change for drivers over 20. I spoke with Senior Sergeant Ian Campion, the road policing manager for the Western Bay of Plenty, to find out what we need to know before we get behind the wheel.
Well, the limit's changing for adults over the age of 20, so from the 1st of December, that will reduce the breath alcohol limit from the current 400 micrograms of alcohol per litre of breath down to 250, and it will also reduce the blood alcohol level from 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood down to 50. Now, when you talk about standard drinks, it's really difficult to actually come up with a set level or a set number of drinks, for the simple reason that everybody reacts differently to alcohol. It depends a lot on your physical size, your gender. It depends on whether you've had anything to eat that day, and depends on your activities and of course your metabolism. So look, it's really difficult to say, yes, you're okay to have a particular number of standard drinks. The message that police need to get across and people need to take on board is, the message is simply don't have a drink and then drive. So make arrangements before you're going to go out and drink for transportation to get home.
What will the limits be then for blood alcohol testing?
Okay, so the limits for blood alcohol have been reduced from the 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood down to 50. So there's also some discussion around how you phrase that. In Australia, it's 0.05. So if you look at our levels, it's come down from 0.08 to 0.05.
So when is someone required to actually take a blood test?
Well, the process really initially starts with a breath screening test on the side of the road, then moves to an evidential breath test. Those that are required to undergo, and when I say required, there is a requirement as opposed to an option, then they're people that refuse the evidential breath test, or those people that are in hospital as a result of a crash.
Why are we changing our laws then?
Well, I think, look, it's really unequivocal. Around the world, research shows that by reducing the alcohol limit for drivers, you actually reduce the trauma on our roads. And if you have a look at our stats, over the last 10 years, there's been 1,100 people killed as a result of drink driving and over 5,000 people injured. So really it's a no-brainer. And I think for me that this is probably the best road policing initiative for New Zealand since the introduction of the zero alcohol level for under 20s. And this should translate into fewer deaths and fewer injuries on our roads.
Is this a trend that's happening worldwide to lower that blood alcohol limit?
Well, 89 countries around the world, including Australia, have adopted the World Health Organisation's recommendation that levels should be set at the 50 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood. So really that just brings New Zealand in line with the national trend.
Do you think then we had it way too high?
Personally, I think so. And I really welcome the lower levels because, as I've said, what it will do, in fact, it will translate into fewer deaths, fewer people, more people spending Christmas with their loved ones, less people in hospital. It's got to be good for New Zealand.
Remember, from the 1st of December, the alcohol limit for drivers aged 20 years and over lowers from 400 mcg of alcohol per litre of breath to 250 mcg. The blood alcohol limit lowers from 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of blood to 50 milligrams. Moana Iwi radio announcer Pat Spellman has been on a bit of a journey to make Tauranga the first bilingual city in New Zealand. And finally, after hard work and a bit of hostility, the first signs have been printed.
Yes, well, we've essentially sort of got to the finish point in one of the three phases. Sort of depending on how familiar you are with the Tauranga Te Reo concept, there were three phases, and one of them, the biggest sort of chunk of it, was the bilingual signage that we were hoping to erect throughout Tauranga and Mount Maunganui and sort of some of the places in our city, and we got to a point now where we can start sort of putting them up, and so we're celebrating the final leg of that phase.
The council have come on board then?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bumpy ride, to be fair, and a lot of it sort of maybe was established by the fact that obviously there was going to be a bit of uproar if the council spent $1, because that's sort of what happens when you spend $1 here, people cry about it. So what we thought we'd do is we'd ensure that the council didn't really come on board in terms of ratepayer subsidies and using any real ratepayers cash, because we didn't sort of want that controversial element to it. So what the council have since done is sort of supported us throughout that whole consultation phase and ensuring that if we need any support when it comes to even just advice or around the sort of the regulatory reform in terms of putting things up and helping us with that sort of stuff, they've been really, really cool. So I'm very fortunate that we've got a cooperative city council when it comes to ensuring the cultural diversity of our city. Let's hope they continue to subscribe to that kaupapa.
Now, as you said, there was a bit of uproar about the kaupapa when it first was announced. Tell me about that.
Oh, that was to be expected though. We jumped into a pond that was generally, pretty, not for want of a better term, but they were sort of set in their ways. And so a few feathers were ruffled when I came in and I said, look, I want to put some bilingual signs up. The first thing I think was around a lack of knowledge in terms of the project itself, and maybe there were a bit of miscommunication in terms of what we were trying to do. A lot of people assumed it was bilingual road signs and we were going to replace everything. And so you can understand there were a bit of, there was a bit of apprehension around that. But once they sort of come to terms with what we're actually trying to do, I think a lot of mindset changed. There's always going to be those who don't subscribe to that same positive outlook in terms of Māori language, the Māori culture, Māori diversity. But apart from that, no, everything seems to be pretty cool, which is cool.
So it has settled down then?
I think after things like Pukehenehena, the Pukehenehena commemorations around Gate Pa and the 150th year, things like Waitangi Day concerts, and the fact that Tiki Tane lives here now, I think people have just started to embrace Māori people, so it's a good thing.
Now, mostly people were upset about that ratepayer money being spent, so it's definitely not the case.
No, not $1 up until this point, and I use that cautiously because, to be honest, and I want to ensure that we are totally transparent with this. I'm assuming that when the council set aside meetings and they talk to us and we're in the meeting room with them for 2 hours, then we've used council money because they're there and they're talking to us that their wages are being paid, so that's there, right? And so anyone who wants to split hairs and try and be a bit of a nitpicker can use that theory, and I'm totally open to that. But in terms of a cheque being written to bankroll this concept, no. And in fact, no money from Tauranga City Council, the Western Bay Plenty Council, the Regional Council, the three iwi and Tauranga Moana didn't contribute anything in terms of money. So there was no ratepayers money went into this other than ratepayers who decided to donate, which was appreciated.
Who are some of those donators?
A lot of them were big companies who really just wanted to jump on board in an incognito fashion and sort of just support it. And one of them, we're going to sort of unveil the name and the sort of brand of our biggest sponsor when we do start erecting these signs throughout the city. So we'll do that in due course, and I hope people will get behind these really generous sponsors and donors and support them the way that they've supported us in this concept and this project. So yeah, I'll tell you when I'm allowed, but yeah, no, they're locals and they're really good people.
To tautoko this kaupapa, visit the Facebook page Tauranga Te Reo. Coming up next, it's White Ribbon Day. Welcome back to Central News. In New Zealand, an average of 14 women a year are killed by their partners or ex-partners. Every year, there are over 3,500 convictions recorded against men for assaults on women, and 1 in 5 women will experience sexual assault or sexual interference at some point in their lives. It's White Ribbon Day today, which celebrates the many men who have chosen to commit to safe, healthy relationships within families. I spoke with 2 Bay Plenty women who work with those who have experienced domestic violence and found out the warning signs from early on.
And most of the time, woman does know in the beginning and saying, I was giving him a chance, time to change, and a lot of the time, ethnic women try every single way to try out to work this relationship. They come to the point when they are on the end of it and there's no other way out, especially if the SIFs got involved or the police got involved. It's gone quite serious where they have no choice to leave. And a lot of the time they do try to reconcile, thinking it might work, he might have changed since I left him. And when they come on the second time, they do sometimes say, I shouldn't have gone. And normally my answers to them is, at least you have given enough chances to him to change. Now you have no regret for later on in the life.
Heather, what do you think are some early warning signs that it possibly could be a dangerous relationship?
When a young woman in particular start saying in their head to themselves, I mustn't wear that dress, he doesn't like it. I shouldn't talk to his friends, he doesn't like it. I won't invite mum or my sister or all my support people round because he doesn't like it. So the isolation begins and the control starts to take over. These are some very early warning signs for our woman, just to go to that Women's Refuge website and take that relationship quiz that's on there. There's some amazingly good pointers on that website about some of the warning signs to be aware of.
And what about if we know of someone who is in a violent relationship and we don't want to be the narc?
That's quite rife in our community. I'm hoping with the It's Not Okay campaign that's changing. And you know, it's really easy to say over the fence, are you okay? That's not me narking, that's just me as a concerned neighbour to say, are you okay? Can I help you? Is there any support I can offer you? It's the beginning of our whole community starting to step up and take responsibility for all our women and our children and what's happening over our next door neighbours' fences. Yep.
And is there that kind of stigma against narking in the ethnic population?
Especially when a woman, normally what happens when a woman is married, and most of the marriages are arranged marriages, forced marriages, underage marriages. And when a woman has got a problem with the relationship, the first one normally she goes to the family, and the family is either might be the husband want more dowry to keep me in the relationship, and the parents are thinking, okay, we can give the dowry to settle this down. And that's something the parents need to decide, or the family we need to educate, being more awareness that this is the early signs. If this is happening, this relationship is power and controlled from the beginning to make a judgment only on the conditional, you know, if she listens to me, she can stay. Otherwise, I don't want her in the house.
And what about if we have a friend that is in a dangerous, violent relationship? How can we encourage them to move on?
Normally, we have got programs like coffee sessions, subsidized driving lessons, and that way sort of we do link to the women in the community, so they are aware that we are here and they can talk about just generally asking information, and the staff always around there to give some information what's going on. And also just the Pohutakawa tree cards are really useful in Bay of Plenty area. Normally just giving this to the woman, and it's got all the numbers at the back from the Women's Refuge to Shakti and other services around there to make a contact.
Yep, and I'd agree with Sonia about the Pohutakawa cards. It's got It's Not Okay on the outside of it, and it's got all our DV accredited agencies. Really important to listen to women and to believe their stories. Some of their stories are sometimes unbelievable, and we've got no idea what goes on behind closed doors in some people's homes. And it's our children that we must hold as our precious taonga, so that we need to Yeah, just even if we start talking about what they see in the future for their children. Family violence, it's not okay, but it is okay to ask for help is the mantra that we're using. And I think it's so much on our TVs now that everybody in New Zealand knows that saying. So it's a really good opener to talk to our women about. Yep.
Children are quite often exposed to domestic violence, and in fact, being exposed to domestic violence is a form of child abuse. What kind of effect does that have on a child? Do we know how it affects them in their future?
It has huge effect. We know that in the first 3 years, because of the work of the Brainwave Trust, a child's brain, when it's living in trauma, develops differently. DV, domestic violence, is trauma. So we know their brain waves and their brain patterns are different. We know, for instance, that we've got one of the highest teenage pregnancy rates in the OECD countries. We know that our young men are killing themselves at a higher rate than other countries, other Western countries. All of this is showing us what's happening to our kids. We know that behaviour changes when children are brought up in domestic violence. Children can introvert or extrovert. They're acting out what they see. Often all communication is all behaviour is communication. So our kids are trying to tell us things. It's us adults that need to listen to their pleas for help.
How important is it to put the emphasis back on the men, that the men need to stand up and say something?
I think it's absolutely vital. Men aren't the whole solution to the family violence issue, but they're one of the solutions. We as a community need to be accountable for our neighbours and for each of us, but safe men can make such a difference. Safe men saying, actually bro, what you're doing's not okay, it can make such a difference, and we know that.
Are you finding in the ethnic population that men are standing up and saying something against men?
Not many. We have got a family centre up in Auckland where we were thinking if women reconcile, she can go for counselling together. But since we have that office, we haven't seen not even a single case at the moment where men is coming forward to ask for help.
And of course, it's not just about physical violence. Emotional abuse can have a huge effect too, can't it?
Well, you can emotionally abuse a woman without physically or sexually hurting her. It is still family violence.
And a lot of the Asian countries, like Bangladesh, over 80% of the figures are the women are getting abused in their homes.
If you or anyone you know is experiencing any form of domestic abuse, you can phone the crisis line 0800 Refuge, or for the Ethnic Women's Refuge 0800 Shakti. Just ahead, the rise of the gym bunny. Welcome back to Central News on TV Central. Reality programs like Jersey and Geordie Shore, the rise of the celebrity culture, CrossFit, or maybe it's the looming obesity epidemic. Whatever it is, there seems to be a rise in popularity in being fit and healthy and supplement use. So much so that some Bay of Plenty gentlemen have started their own supplement company out of Mount Maunganui with truly Kiwi flavours like Fijoa. I found out if looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger is what Kiwis are after.
Well, there were 3 of us in Australia. We were all close friends and we were all gymming it all the time over there. And we just realised that when we came back to New Zealand after living over there for 3 years that the supplements stuff were a lot more expensive over here. And they were the same brands as that, but they were even the exchange rate was a lot worse than what we even assumed. So we just decided to make supplements for our friends, and then we ended up making them for other people as well.
Is there really a need for another supplement company?
We definitely think so, because the industry just keeps on growing and growing and growing. It's never going to stop, I don't think. And we just enjoy it. It's a job we love to do, and we just want to help other people enjoy it as well.
Why take a supplement?
Supplements are there to give the users the nutrients they might be missing from their diets. So if you're missing, say, protein, carbs, fats, that sort of thing, you can take a supplement to get it up to the levels that you want. and therefore recover faster, perform better.
There seems to be more evidence now that processed foods are bad for us. Isn't supplements processed?
Yes, there is that, but there's also the side that we at Adonis, we prefer to use natural ingredients when we can, and we're looking at actually changing all of our flavours to natural, which we have most of them natural at the moment, and colours, most of them natural as well. So we're just, when we can, we don't want to exchange the flavour for the actual natural side of it. We want to make it taste good, but still be as much as natural as we possibly can.
There seems to be a rising popularity, especially in the younger generation, to be fit and healthy. Why do you think that is?
I think there definitely is a rise in the popularity of the fit and healthy lifestyle. I think it's a lot to do with just the public image of it all being a lot more acceptable. There's lots of TV shows now that promote it. And also celebrities as well, like Mark Wahlberg, and you see Wolverine or Hugh Jackman out there doing it, putting it up on like Facebook, and it's just appealed to the younger generation a lot.
Some would associate supplements with bodybuilders. Would that be accurate?
It's definitely a common misconception that we get a lot. It helps bodybuilders for sure, but it's not just for them. It could help the everyday person just trying to get a little bit fitter or lose a bit of weight. It'll definitely help. Our protein is New Zealand protein. It's also quite cheap compared to others. We keep the ingredient list to a minimum, so we don't want to have a big chemical list on the back. We try and keep it as healthy as possible. Like Nick said, we've got natural colours and flavours in it.
Why take a protein powder?
For post-workout, you want to try and repair those muscles that you've got. You usually damage them. It sounds bad, but when you're working out, you damage your muscles and you need the fuel to repair them again.
Now for the weather for Wednesday. Now for the marine forecast. That is the program for today. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so by liking our Facebook page, centralnews.tv, or email us news@tvcentral.co.nz. If you feel out of breath in the morning, then you need to watch tomorrow night's show. We also look at the trust between the public and police. I'm Hilary Entwistle. I hope you have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.